Om
Namo Brahmavityo Brahmavidya Sampradaya Katrubhyo Vanshashishyo Mahadyo Namo Gurubhyah Sarvopapravahita Prajnanagana Pratyagato Brahmaivahamasmi Sarvopapravahita Prajnanagana Pratyagato Brahmaivahamasmi Om Narayanam Padmabam Vashistam Shakyam Jadaputra Parasharam Cha Vyasam Shubham Gaudavalam Mahantam Govinda Yogendra Matasya Shishyam Sri Shankaracharya Matasya Padmapadam Charastamaratam Shishyam Tam Todakam Bhartikakaram Shivanandam Jnanasmat Gurum Santatamānatosmi Shruti Smriti Puranānaṁ Ālayam Karuṇālayam Namāmi Bhagavadpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarāyanam Sutrabhāśyakrतौ Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murtideva Vibhagini Vyomavadvyātadevāya Shri Dakshināmurteye Namaha.
Om Sahana
Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavāvahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishāvahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Om
Bhadram karnehi vishnunyama devaha Bhadram pashyemakshaviryatraha Sthirairangai stuštuvagum sastharobhihi Yashema devahidam yadayuhu Swasti na indro vruddhashavaha Swasti na pusha vishvavedaha Swasti na sakshyo arishthanemihi Swasti no Brihaspatir Dadatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Just start at the comment to one sentence. No pause for expressing it.
Swamiji, would you like water? Swamiji, would you like some water? Water?
I didn't know. Verse number 36. Ajam anidram aswapnam anamagam arupagam sagrit vipadam sarvajnam na upacharak kadhamchana. This absolute truth which we want to know, which we want to realize. Birthless, free from sleep and dream, without name and form, ever effulgent and omniscient. Nothing has to be done in any way. The literal meaning of the words with respect to Brahman. Of course, a commentary, a long commentary is given with a number of notes. Brahman is both within and without, as well as unborn, as there is no cause for its passing into birth. We are trying to understand this. For we have already stated that the phenomenon of birth is seen on account of the ignorance of the real nature of a thing, as is the case with the rope giving birth to the illusion of the snake. Yesterday we discussed about the state before creation. Before creation, God alone was. That's the usual statement of the scriptures. And our reasoning, our logic also will agree. If God has created this world, there must be a time when He has not created this. Just before creation, He alone could have been there. He alone. Nothing of this phenomenal world, including cause and effect, could have been there. Therefore, in the absence of a cause before creation, there could not have been an effect called creation. This is one argument, logical argument. Any defect in this argument? Yes? Any defect? You completely agree? Argument is perfect? Logical? Yes? Doubt? No doubt?
I was just wondering if you could point to a defect.
Huh?
She wants to know if you could point to a defect in this argument.
Any
You're asking us if there's a defect, and she's asking you, is there a defect?
defect. Of course, we cannot go against the scripture. Scripture gives us the truth. But for argument's sake, we can bring in arguments. But we are not expected to do that. Arguing for argument's sake. We are allowed to argue any amount of arguments we can argue, provided the purpose is to know the truth. And we are not allowed to argue even in one single argument for argument's sake. Yes. So what is the purpose? No, you want the argument? No. If it is for argument's sake, we are not to argue.
Of course, there's the argument in the scripture also that says deep sleep, rather than deep sleep being the non-dual, that it's just one of the three states. Even in this Upanishad itself.
Yes, it says different from sleep and dream.
Yeah. No, but we can look at deep sleep in two ways. Well, yeah, one way we analyze it as a non-dual, one...
For the time being, we follow this scripture. There are two ways in that, two views always. Nobody has come to a conclusion about that. Not that nobody, but no scripture. When they write something about this, or they talk something about this, they leave the whole thing to the hearer, to the disciple to decide. They point out two views, and it is left to you to decide how your mind and your intellect thinks. In the deep sleep, they say there is a little ignorance in a hidden state, in a seed form. That is what is stated here. That is why when you wake up, you are again back in the original world. Although in deep sleep, you are perfectly well, quite all right, without any problem. In peace, ultimate peace. But when you come out, when you wake up again, the whole world is there in front of you with all the problems. Therefore they posit some kind of ignorance, a seed form of ignorance while we are in deep sleep. This is one argument in the scripture, which is followed here. Therefore, we have to transcend the deep sleep state also. Deep sleep state is one of the three states, conditions, conditioned. On the other hand, there is another argument, another set of philosophies, philosophical schools, that's also in the Upanishads. It says, who saw the seed of ignorance in deep sleep? You say there is no world in deep sleep because you did not see it, isn't it? You say there is no body in the deep sleep, no world in deep sleep. Why? Because you did not see it. Did you see the seed of ignorance there? Nobody has seen that. Nobody has seen that. Not only that, we go one more step there. Not only the presence of the world, but the absence of the world also is not seen in the deep sleep. Does anybody feel that there is no world in deep sleep at that time? You don't see the world, that is, you can understand easily. Now, the question is, did you feel or think or know that there is no world there? No. The presence of the world and the absence of the world, both were not there. It is beyond the pair of opposite, the presence and absence of the world. Yes. Here also, your logic will agree. But between these two, which do you prefer?
The first one, second one.
It is for you to decide. It is for you to decide.
And Swamiji, the argument that Yoga Vashishta puts forth when he says God alone was before creation is more in line with the second one you just said, that it's in a non-dual condition.
God alone was there before creation. There was no cause, something called cause before creation, and therefore there cannot be, there could not or there cannot be an effect called creation. Why God created this world? No cause for it. God alone was there. Then what do we see here? All this is good for argument's sake, but when you open your eyes, the world is there. When you come out of sleep, the world is there. In the dream, you see another world. How do you explain it? That is given in the commentary. We have already stated that the phenomenon of birth here means birth of the world, is seen on account of the ignorance of this great truth, that God alone is here, even now. We are ignorant of it. Even after we are told about it, our mind and intellect do not completely agree. They are not convinced because of the habit, strong habit in us that I am different, your world is different, and God is different. This kind of information is deep rooted in us. That prevents the knowledge given by the scriptures entering into our intellect. Intellect is not refusal, it rejects because of the other thing. Therefore, great masters say, empty your mind of all notions about creation. Yes.
So when the moment the intellect becomes active, other way to thinking, it identifies itself with the body, so you get always duality and ignorance.
Say that again.
The moment the intellect becomes active on waking, it identifies itself with the body. And as such, you always live in ignorance while it's active. You have to empty it, you have to still it.
Yeah, he says is, as long as the intellect is active, when it becomes active in the waking state, it identifies with the body.
What is right?
Yes, and what,
Right?
and what was the rest?
And it will thus always be in ignorance because identification with the body means duality.
Ah, yes, that'll always mean ignorance because identification with the body
Body,
means duality.
Right.
And therefore the importance of emptying
The mind.
Emptying the mind.
was filling the
There,
intellect.
yes. Therefore, you have to empty the mind. I am telling you. You agree to that?
Yes, he's agreeing to what you're saying.
The prejudice, we think we are right. But according to scriptures and great masters, our concepts are wrong concepts. So let the mind be emptied of these wrong concepts. When once the mind is emptied completely, what happens? It is a vacuum is created. Just like air rushes into the vacuum, God rushes into it. Yes. What prevents God from entering us, or we entering into God, is the wrong concepts in our mind, which acts as an obstruction. We have already stated that the phenomenon of birth is seen on account of the ignorance of the real nature of a thing, as in the case of the example, the rope giving birth to the illusion of the snake. It's a note here. The nature of Brahman, which is the subject matter under discussion, Brahman, the absolute, the truth. You want to know the truth. Don't get frightened by the word Brahman and all those things. We want to know the truth behind this appearance. You know this is an appearance. Everything is changing every moment. Therefore, there must be something which is not changing. This is a simple logic. And we ourselves note the change. We ourselves have come to the conclusion that everything is changing. And therefore, that which is not changing must be within us. It is that, because of that, we are able to tell that everything is changing. Simple logic.
Is that the thing that is not changing?
Yeah.
Is it what transcends the
Change.
world or the fourth dimension?
Transcends?
No, the world.
Yes.
That which is not changing, knows this change in us,
That is
what they refer to as the
That
fourth
is not
dimension.
the ultimate truth. The ultimate truth, we cannot say it is changeless. A changelessness which we attribute to the Absolute is in relation to the changing world.
So we're still in a duality, in a sense.
Yes.
The subject and
When you
object.
say changelessness, still we are in the realm of duality. The changelessness, the concept itself, is the opposite of the concept change. Because the whole world is changing, we say God is changing, not changing. That doesn't define God. God is beyond both change and changelessness, existence and non-existence. Yes?
They say that consciousness is all pervasive.
Yes.
Does that, in that all pervasiveness, does it move?
Moves.
Yeah.
How can there be movement in our count?
Well, in the ocean is all water, but there's still movement in the ocean.
Ocean is all water. Still there is movement in the ocean.
No, there is movement because
Space.
there is air there. There must be air. On the surface there must be air. That causes the movement. And further, this example cannot be applied here. Your water and God. God is not like water.
So consciousness is absolutely still.
Yes, it is the absolute.
No, absolutely still.
Without movement.
Still, no. No, exactly. Again, movement and non-movement are transcended in consciousness.
Which means it includes both.
Includes both, again, includes.
Yeah, no, but transcend means beyond and including.
Includes both because there is nothing other to it. We know it is infinite and therefore being infinite, there cannot be anything outside it. So your movement and non-movement must come within it. Therefore we include that. And it is beyond duality and therefore it is beyond movement and non-movement. Both come under duality. Therefore we say it is neither. We say both, we say neither. This is a pair of opposite again. Both and neither. Transcend that. Therefore we call God as transcendent. Transcendent, transcending everything that the mind can imagine and that mind cannot imagine. It transcends everything. And yet it is immanent in every atom of the so-called creation. Like the wood is present in the dust. Therefore the creation is nothing but that. We first denied creation in the sense that it is as something different from God. That creation is denied. We don't deny the world, even as we don't deny the dusk. I am using the dusk. My hand is on the dusk. We don't deny it. We deny a dusk different from the wood. You can understand this.
But I can't understand how something can be not changing and not still.
No. It is beyond the mind. That is why we say God is beyond the mind and intellect. You are very honest, I know. You are telling the truth that the mind cannot understand. It is not for understanding. God is not for understanding. He is the understander in one sense. How can the understander be understood?
ideas is to drop them, to leave them.
No, it is not cancellation. We include them and then transcend. We give the example of the high school 10th class transcends all the 9 classes below. That doesn't mean you have to forget everything that you studied in the 9 classes and go to the 10th class. 10th class is a new class, of course. It is not nothing to do with it. It is higher than all the 9 classes. But all that you studied in the 9 classes are there and must be there if you want to sit in the 10th class. So, it is, but still 10th class is not any of the 9 classes. It is different from all the 9 classes. Something like that we have to understand here. Transcending is not cancellation. There is nothing to cancel here because God is perfect, infinite. A blade of grass is His expression. You cannot do anything with it. What you call renunciation, understand the meaning of the word renunciation, which is given in the Ishavasya Upanishad. The first Upanishad, the first line, the first half of the first line gives the whole truth. That is how scriptures tell us the truth. There are 1180 Upanishads. Of that, first Upanishad is Ishavasya Upanishad. And in that, the first line, the first half, says the whole truth. Ishavasyam idam sarvam. Yaskinja jagatyam jagat. Tena tektena bhunjira. Renunciation also comes there. Cover the whole world with God. Just like you cover all the ornaments with gold. Cover all your clothes with thread. And now the clothes are not there. Renounce the clothes. Enjoy now the cloth. Enjoy. The nature of Brahman, which is the subject matter under discussion, is thus described in other ways to help us understanding it, although it is beyond understanding. Still we can understand it. Finally we know whatever we understand is that alone. Whatever we see is that alone. Whatever we hear is that alone. This is our discovery. Although in the early stages we say it is beyond all sense perception, it is beyond the intellect, it is beyond the mind, it is very subtle, subtler than the subtlest, all that we say that. To sharpen our intellect, to purify our intellect. And that purified intellect discovers that there is nothing other than God here. All that you pursue through the 5 senses is that and that alone. Whatever you think through the mind is that and that alone. Whatever you talk is that and that alone. This is the discovery. Yes. The purport of this verse is that apart from the realization of one's identity with the attributeless Brahman, no effort is to be made by him. Just know that I am that. I am that I am. No further effort. Yes. The purport of this verse is that apart from the realization of one's identity with this attributeless Brahman, no effort is to be made by him. The categorical imperative of Kant has no meaning for a knower of Atman. What is it? Anybody knows Kant's philosophy? The categorical imperative. I'm sorry, I do not know. Leave it out. Consult somebody else.
It's referred to here somewhere. It was referred somewhere in here also. He referred to Kant, but I can't remember.
Somewhere before, he referred to Kant, and then there he explained the whole thing. And we were able to follow it. Now I have forgotten what.
I forgot what it is.
He's a German,
Yeah, he's a great philosopher. He's the greatest philosopher.
Yogic Samadhi is not the same as the goal of Jnana Yoga, path of knowledge. Yogic Samadhi is not the same as the Samadhi you get through knowledge. Yogic Samadhi comes and goes. You are in it for some time and they are out of it afterwards, before that and after that. But this Jnana Samadhi is when once you understand this truth, you have perceived the truth, you are 24 hours, you are in Samadhi. Whatever work you do, need not be always meditating in Padmasana. Yes. You can attend your worldly duties, whatever be the duties. That makes the difference between world and God ceases. The difference between secular and spiritual is no more of that. This is the knowledge. This is the Samadhi. The yogic Samadhi is not the same as the goal of Jnana Yoga as described in the philosophy of Advaita Vedanta or this Karika. The phenomenon of the rope producing the snake is due to the ignorance of the real nature of the rope. If you had seen the rope, you will never see the snake there. You missed to see the rope which is really there, although your eyes were falling on the rope. You thought it was a snake, because the absence of knowledge of the rope gave rise to the knowledge of the snake, the thought of the snake. Similarly here, the absence of the knowledge of the truth gives rise to the appearance of a world in the waking state, in the dream state, and its absence in the deep sleep state. These three are like the snake. Appear and disappear. From where, if that snake has come from the rope, then we may say this world, waking, dream and deep sleep have come from the self. Have they come? Has the snake come from the rope? No, the snake has not come from the rope, in spite of the fact that you saw it. Similarly here, in spite of the fact that we all see the waking state world, the dream state world, and the absence of that in the deep sleep, they are not there. What is really there is the self. Yes. It is birthless because all ignorance is destroyed by the knowledge of truth, which is the Atman, or the Self. It cannot have birth and death, you know. When there is no birth and death, the intermediate experience of pleasure and pain also will not be there. You know. Hence, it is free from sleep, for Atman, which is by nature non-dual, is always free from sleep, the nature of which is that of beginningless delusion, characterized by ignorance. The note here. Sleep means the non-apprehension of objects. As is the characteristic of the mind in deep sleep. We don't see any object there, which includes our body also. Body also is an object. Mind also is an object. We don't see any of these objects there. Therefore, we call that state as sleep. In the causal world, this nidra or sleep or ignorance is known to be beginningless, as no beginning of it can be found. When the ignorance started, nobody can say. That which has no beginning. God also has no beginning. Ignorance also has no beginning. But God has no end. Even as He has no beginning, He has no end. But this ignorance, which has no beginning, has an end.
In the middle also it may not be there.
Huh?
In the middle.
Middle also it is there. Yes. Sleep is a non-existent state. Very interesting. In deep sleep, everything was non-existent. You know that. And Indian logic called Nyaya Shastra has divided non-existence into 4 categories. What has been divided into 4 categories? Non-existence of what? Pure non-existence. Yes. The concept of non-existence. It is not existence. It is non-existence. Zero, void, maybe synonymous with that. The Rajishans say there are 4 kinds of non-existence. One is, what is the technical term? Prag abhava. Prag abhava is, the desk is here. Before the desk was manufactured by the carpenter, before it was made by the carpenter, it was non-existent. You follow that? So this non-existence of the desk before its making is non-existence before coming into existence. Yes. That non-existence has end. That non-existence of the dusk, follow it. It's mere logic. Some exercise for the intellect. Yes.
It has become an end by appearing as it is.
The non-existence of the dusk, before it was made, when did it start? Had it a beginning? No beginning for that. Are you following it? There is any doubt? All. After all, we are studying about non-existence. Yes. Still it is useful. This non-existence of the dusk before it was made had no beginning. When that non-existence started, nobody can know. Beginningless. When did it start? Can you tell? No. But it came to an end when the dusk was made. So a thing which had no beginning has an end in this case. This is praga bhava. Then pradvamsa bhava is the dusk is there, it is burnt completely. Now the dusk is non-existent. This non-existence comes after the destruction of the dusk. This has a beginning. This non-existence has a beginning. That when it was burnt, it has no end. It will never end. It has no end. This dusk will never come into existence after it is burnt once. Then the third kind of non-existence is mutual. The book is there. The book is non-existent in the dusk, and the dusk is non-existent in the book. An object is mutually non-existent, mutual non-existence. And the last one is atyanta abhava. That is, the example is the horns of a man. That is non-existent. Atyanta bhava. It is no beginning, therefore no existence, no end. All this is said by the logicians not for mere playing on words. They say that the self cannot come under any of these, although you cannot see it. Although many people say God does not exist because we don't see it. The kind of non-existences cannot apply to God, to the ever-existent. And then they themselves, these logicians say, or at least the Vedantins say, you have been classifying non-existence into 4 categories and explaining all these things. But can you say whether your non-existent exists or not? It is put to the logician. You have divided non-existence into 4 groups. Very interesting. We understood it. But I put you the question whether your non-existence, absolute non-existence, does it exist or not? What will be the answer of the logician? It will exist. Yes, it exists.
Yes.
If it is exist, how can it be non-existence? It cannot be non-existent. So that which is not non-existent which you gave a name as non-existence, as you are categorized into 4 groups and go on explaining it as if it is existent. It is not non-existence that you are explaining, but it is existence. And the logician who has posited non-existence will never say, my non-existence does not exist. He cannot say that. He cannot afford to say that. So, where is non-existence? If you posit non-existence and say it exists, it is no more non-existence, it is existence. And that is why we say God is always existent, that He can never become non-existent. Something is there which will never become non-existent. And that is pure existence. Are you following the argument? Yes. Here on?
Free from sleep for Atman.
Yeah, take.
It's time, Swami.
Oh, it's time. The name and forms, no, they are not there. Hence it is free always from sleep, the nature of which is that of beginningless delusion characterized by ignorance. This delusion or ignorance is beginningless. Nobody can say when it started, but surely it has an end. Some scriptures will say in some other context that which has no beginning cannot have an end. That which is no beginning and no end, that which does not exist in the beginning and which does not exist in the end, cannot have existence in the middle, referring to the world, the creation. The creation did not exist before creation. It cannot exist after dissolution, and therefore it has no beginning. It has no. It has no existence in the beginning and no existence in the end, and therefore the existence which we feel as though it is there in the middle is an appearance. It is not real existence. This is one of the arguments put in by Gita says that. We stop here. We'll think over it. All this is for you to think. We want to know the truth, isn't it? Put forth some effort to know the truth. It is not an object. If it were an object, you would have known it long before. We would all have been great sages and saints. Yes. Fortunately, unfortunately, it is not an object. It will never become an object of our intellect. Yet, that alone is, we are all that.
Om Ittetaraksham Vedam Sarvam Tasya Upavyakyanam Bhutam Bhavatadrishyati Sarvam Omkara Eva Yachyamyat Trikalatītam Tadapi Omkara Eva Sarvam Yena Brahma Ayamatma Brahma Soyamatma Chatushvat Jagritasthano Bhavishvajna Sattanga Yekonavimshatinga Stula Bhukvaishvana Brahmapada Sapnasthano Antaprajna Sattanga Yekonavimshatinga Praivikta Bhuktreso Dvitiya Padana Yatra Supto Naranjana Ramam Ramayade Naranjana Swapnam Pashyati Tadatsutam Susukadastaye Bhuta Prajnanaganayeva Anandamayogi Anandabhu Cheto Mukha Dvitiya Padana Yesha Sarveshwara Yesha Sarvajna Yesho Antaryami Yesha Yoni Sarvasya
प्रभवाम्येव हि भूतानां नान्तःप्रज्ञं न बहिष्प्रज्ञं न वेदप्रज्ञं न प्रज्ञानघनं न प्रज्ञं न अप्रज्ञं अदृष्टम् अव्यवहार्यम् अग्राह्यम् अलक्षणम् अचिन्त्यम् अव्यपदेश्यम् एकात्मप्रत्ययसारम् प्रपञ्चोपशमम् शान्तम् शिवम् अद्वैतम् चतुर्थम् मन्यन्ते स आत्मा सविज्ञेयः सोऽयमात्माध्यक्षरम् ओङ्कारोऽधिमात्रम् पादामात्रा मात्राश्च पादा अकार उकारो मकार इति जागरितस्थानो वैश्वानरो अकार प्रथमा मात्रा नाप्तेरादिमत्वाद्वा आप्नोति न वै सर्वान् कामान् आदिश्च भवति य एवं वेद स्वप्नस्थानस्तैजस उकारो द्वितीया मात्रा उत्कर्षादुभयत्वाद्वा उत्कर्षति न वै ज्ञानसम्पत्तिं समानश्च भवति न स्यात् ब्रह्मवित्कुले भवति य एवं वेद सुषुप्तस्थानप्राज्ञो मकारस्तृतीया मात्रा निदेरवीतेर्वा विनोदिकवा इदं सर्वम् अतीतिश्च भवति य एवं वेद अमात्रस्तदुतो व्यवहार्यः प्रपञ्चोपशमः शिवोऽद्वैत एवमोङ्कारात्मैव संविशति आत्मनात्मानं य एवं वेद य एवं वेद ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैः स्तुष्ट्वा पुंसस्तनूभिः विषेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्ताक्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति 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 ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
Second part.
Yes. You have the introduction of the Brahmanandaji Upanishad. The knowledge that is of the Upanishad is thus inseparable from the being of the self. Being of the self. Being in inverted commas. Understand it properly. Inseparable from the being, enough, or being of the self, or our own being. It is inseparable from our being. The knowledge of the Upanishad is thus inseparable from our being. Understand it properly. It requires a lot of reflection. The being is the knowledge. Our knowledge is the being. Knowledge is the Upanishad. Knowledge which the Upanishad gives us. What about other knowledges? Knowledge of this, knowledge of that, knowledge of a tree, knowledge of a mountain. For the time being, we say they are objective knowledge. That is not the end, that is not ultimate reply. The ultimate reply is even that he is the being. All objects are nothing but subjects. There is no object in this world. Subject alone is, consciousness alone is. That you are going to have to, is being explained here in the further sections of the Upanishad. This is the characteristic difference of the Upanishadic wisdom, which is the Adhyatma Vidya. Adhyatma Vidya is the knowledge of the Atman, Adhyatma, the Supreme Being. It is not a knowledge that one acquires about a thing, the time being. But it is knowledge which is inseparable from the very being of him who owns this knowledge. See the difficulty of expression. He said, you are, the being is knowledge. Now he uses the expression, who owns this knowledge? If you start reflecting over this, you may in the earlier stages find contradictions. But finally you yourself will realize that it is due to want of proper words to express the truth. The defect of the language or the limitation of language when it comes to speak of that self. It is knowledge of the reality, that is satta samanya, existence, absolute. It is the existence of the non-existence also. Yes. In the morning we discussed about non-existence. Do you remember? 4 kinds of non-existence. And finally we found there is no non-existence, only existence is there. There cannot be non-existence. Yes. There cannot be any non-existence because when somebody puts the question, does the non-existence exist or not? If you say yeah, it exists, it becomes existence. If you say it does not exist, when non-existence does not exist, what exists is existence. Thus, in both the cases, you will find the existence cannot be avoided, can never become non-existent. That is Satta Samanya, and that is another name for God. Sat in Satchidananda. Yes. It is knowledge of reality, Satta Samanya, as it is sometimes called, which is translated as general existence, not particular existence, not particularized knowledge. It is general. That pervades everywhere. That is eternal, all pervasive. The knowledge of existence itself is the knowledge announced in the Upanishads. Consciousness of existence, consciousness, existence, satta, sat, chit. Existence, knowledge, we say. They are not two words, although they are technically two words, they are referring to the same entity. General existence and general consciousness. Consciousness without an object, existence without an object. They are identical. Though there are two different words having two different dictionary meanings. It is not knowledge of any person or an object. It is not knowledge of any person, an object, or the structural pattern of anything. It is a knowledge of being, again. Being. It's difficult to understand the meaning, the connotation of the word being. You have to think, reflect. It is a consciousness of existence. Our consciousness which is existence. Which is going to be the freedom of the spirit. It is in this sense, perhaps, that we call the ultimate reality as Satchidananda. Sat, Chit, Ananda. Existence, consciousness, bliss, absolute. You did something here.
Move the words. So I can take the classicness.
It is a consciousness of ultimate existence which is at once freedom and bliss. It is not a definition of any person or individual form. The nature of Satchidananda, about which we have heard so much, is not a definition of any particular condition of life. It is not also a description of the happiness of the human mind. It is not a future condition that we are going to enter, most important. As if we are not Satchidananda, after studying the Upanishads, after doing meditation, then we will become Satchidananda. Don't entertain such ideas. It is not a future condition that we are going to enter. It is a description of eternity itself, where being, again, the word being and knowledge of being, consciousness, become one and the same, where there are no sufferings, obviously. That is indicated by the term Ananda. He doesn't say happiness or joy or bliss. We cannot separate our consciousness from the consciousness of our being, for instance. We are. That's all. And we are also aware that we are. Aren't we aware that we are? Or take it I am. I am also aware I am. Our awareness that we are cannot be isolated from the fact of our being. Mind is given some kind of exercise, mind and the intellect, with the help of available best words selected from the vocabulary to indicate. These words do not define. These words are mere pointers. Even Satchidananda, the Sanskrit word, even the word Atman, Brahman, etc. Our awareness that we are cannot be isolated from the fact of our being. Reflect over these words, repeat the sentence, read the sentence again and again. Our being and the knowledge of our being, or the awareness of our being, are inseparable. So that knowledge is being, existence is consciousness. So, this is the type of knowledge that the Upanishad promises to give us. It is thus something unique. You don't get it in any other books, any other subject books on science and arts. It is thus something unique. Towards this end, the Upanishad, this Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, girds up its loins, or we must gird up our loins to understand this, to pursue this. In the beginning, there is an attempt to describe the Ashwamedha sacrifice by identifying the consecrated hearts with the universe as a whole. The sacrifice which is done physically by kings and emperors in those days, they consecrate a hearts, and that represents, it is a symbol of the whole universe. The creation of the universe may be compared to a sacrifice which is symbolically performed by a ceremony through rituals. And when it is contemplated, it becomes an attunement of consciousness with the ultimate nature of creation. Attunement of consciousness, our consciousness with the ultimate nature of creation. And what is this nature of creation? We will understand it when you take up that Shanti Mantra, which he is explaining in the next paragraph after two or three paragraphs. He is explaining the meaning of Purnamada, Purnamidam. There he gives what the nature of creation is, in a nutshell, of course. This, in outline, is the description of the process of creation, assuming there is a creation. The forms, names, and the phenomena which we see and pass through are a reversal of the nature of reality, a reflection, as it were, of the original through some medium, so that we see everything topsy-turvy and never as it really is. And we are habituated to think that the topsy-turvy position is the correct position, the right position. Therefore, there is no problem for us why we are seeing this topsy-turvy position. No, that is our natural. We know. We have been taught like that. Yes.
Swamiji, what does it mean exactly when it says topsy-turvy? What does that mean exactly? I mean, I know, but...
It is not the truth.
It's not
The truth. Yes. The tree that you see is not the tree actually, as reported by your sense organs. The science also tells you this. Up to a limit it goes. They say it is all some kind of electromagnetic forces. Up to that they go. Anyway, it is not a tree, as the eyes report. And we go still further. From the electromagnetic forces, we go still further. It is a thought in your mind, finally. Not finally. At one stage, we consider this as a thought in our mind, as the projection of our mind. Finally, what the mind is, we have to know that it is the self. Once we know this, we know it in the right position, not topsy-turvy. Yeah. To know, to see that, an example, of course, it is a very gross example, very crass example, we should not stretch it too much. To see that the ornament is topsy-turvy, and seeing gold is the truth. Something like that. As I said, it's not exactly like that. It's not exactly like that. Anyway, you are not seeing the truth. When you see the ornament, you are not seeing the truth. It is a shape and name taken by gold. And what is really there is gold. And we say the bangle or the necklace is a reflection of gold, or an imagination taken by gold. The gold imagines that it has become a necklace. You know what is the difference between necklace and gold? Is the difference between God and world. Again, a gross example. Yes.
See, in topsy-turvy.
never as it really is. This is a fact.
Yes, yes. This is a fact which escapes our notice often, that we can see a thing and yet it can be upside down in all the features presented to the perceiving senses. Though we may be seeing the object, we may not visualize it properly. We see only the name and form. Those who have studied the Raja Yoga, this is dealt with very in detail, great detail. An object is placed there and you are asked to remove the name and form. How it should be done, they give you instructions how you can do it. When you remove the name and form, what remains there? The distortion is the name and form. The topsy-turvy position is the name and form. Name and form varies. Different languages give it different names. Form also changes every moment it is changing, you know that. In spite of that, there is something which is not changing in that object. If you remove that name and form, you can see it. Through your purified intellect. Not the eyes. Eyes can see only in the form or the color. Though we may be seeing the object, we may not visualize it properly. We may not understand it properly. And in the usual, we have been habituated to think that whatever we see is the correct thing. We all agree in that. In the wrong conclusion that whatever we see through the eyes is the right thing. I see a tree there, all of us say, yes, there is a tree there. No difference. But the vision, the report to the eyes is not correct. Thus, any achievement in this world of sense perceptions may not be regarded as an ultimate acquisition, even as a collection of many reflections in a basket is not equal to the acquirement of anything substantially. Any achievement in this world of sense perceptions may not be regarded as an ultimate acquisition. They will slip out of your hands. You will leave them or they will leave you. The description of the creative process afforded in the Upanishads in its first chapter is very grand and comprehensive. The exposition has some resemblance to the Purusha Sukta of the Vedas, where the cosmic sacrifice, which is creation, is said to evolve gradually, stage by stage, and touch every aspect of the universe, animate as well as inanimate. Not only the animate and the inanimate existences, but also social organizations, and human activities, other activities, all these are comprehended in this process of manifestation which we call creation. We have then a very pertinent point expounded of a similar nature where the character of sense perception is described. In the analysis of which we are interestingly told that there is a complete reversal of the order of reality in all types of sense perception. The cart is put before the horse, as though whenever we see anything with our eyes, so that we are in a world of confusion, misunderstanding, and therefore necessarily sorrow. Where the understanding is insufficient, sorrow has to come automatically. The senses do not perceive the world correctly. You know that, all that. No great argument is required for this, especially to us who have been here for hearing this for a long time, for long periods. What the senses report is not the right report. Although we base our dealings in the daily life based on their reports. The senses do not perceive the world correctly. This is what is made out subsequent to the description of the creation of the universe, and this description is symbolic in its nature, like a story which goes, but its essence is simple enough to understand that as we see our face in a mirror, where the right is seen as left and the left is seen as right, the thing is not contacted in its reality. There is a right and left reversal, as it were, in the perception of things, and the object which we cognize or perceive is really not in its proper context or position in the scheme of things. We are wrongly apprehending it as an object outside again. While what has really happened in perception is something different. What is seen is inside. In the case of the example of the mirror, where is the reflection? Is it inside the mirror or outside the mirror? Huh? Inside? Suppose this is a mirror, you stand here, where will be your reflection? 6 feet outside the mirror. If you are standing 6 feet this side, in the mirror, reflection will be 6 feet that side. Have you seen that?
Yes.
You go nearer the mirror, the reflection also come nearer to you. You have not noted this? Simple things we miss. We never think where the reflection is. We want to see our face. Oh, that's all.
Swamiji, I have noticed this phenomenon that I argue that the reflection is not 60 to the other side, it's on the mirror, because there's no image beyond the mirror. It appears to be.
Right. I first said it is not. It is seen outside. But when you go outside, you can't see it. Right. Is it inside the mirror?
No, it's on the surface behind the glass, where the That's,
Is-
it appears to be.
The mirror is suppose 1 inch thickness.
Yeah.
Do you say the reflection is inside the mirror?
Well, the mind sees it that way.
Not the mirror, now the mind comes.
Well, it's like
The mind, yes,
It's like a bioscope show, a cinema show.
they prove that though you see the reflection, it is not outside anyhow, we have to say, come to that conclusion. One point is certain. Is it inside the mirror is the next question. Is there has anything entered into the mirror?
No,
No. Then how can it be inside the mirror?
I didn't say it was.
Huh?
I said it appeared to be, but it
It appears to be there. It is not there, it appears to be there. This is the position of the world also now. It appears to be outside, it is not there, it appears to be there. It is inside, it cannot but be outside, but it appears to be outside. This is the reflection theory. We say the whole world is like a reflection, which includes our body and mind. Yes? We are wrongly apprehending it as an object outside, while what has really happened in perception is something different. The object is not outside as we now think. The object of sense perception is the ultimate subject, really. And we erroneously regard it as an object. It is a subject. It has never become an object of perception. Whatever is seen is not there. It is an appearance. It is a subject. Subject is consciousness, which you are. The object seen also is a subject. I am now seeing you. I consider myself as subject and you are the object. From your standpoint,
I'm the subject.
you are the subject. You say, I am the subject. But I continue to say, you are my object. This is the difficulty. Whose statement is correct? As far as you are concerned, your statement must be correct. That you are the subject. But unfortunately, I never recognize the subjectivity there. I consider that as an object of my vision, my senses, my projection, my mind. This mistake is sinful also. Yes. You say I am the subject and I still continue to call you object. I am telling a lie. When you yourself affirm that you are the subject, the consciousness, I may say, I am seeing with my eyes a human form there. You are an object. It is a sin, and I suffer for that sin. Recognize the subject everywhere, in all objects. In other words, see God everywhere. See consciousness everywhere. We are wrongly apprehending it as an object outside, while what has really happened in perception is something different. The object of sense perception is the ultimate subject, really. Not only you, every object, every atom in this creation is the subject, the consciousness, just as you are the subject, the pure consciousness. We erroneously regard it as an object. How it is the subject and how it is not the object, we shall see when we study the section as we come to it. This detail, the explanation is given in great detail, convincing you, it will convince you. All arguments are replied. Your counter arguments have gone, still further counter arguments are there. Arguments have got counter arguments, and those counter arguments have got further counter arguments to convince you. Provided you are sincere and you want to know it. The objects of perception are really subjects, says the Upanishad. And this is the mistake that we make. The non-recognition of subjectivity, even in what is regarded as an object, is the mistake. We'll stop here. Any question? In regard to this?
स्वच्छस्य वाद्यमर्घ्यं च शुद्धस्यागमनं कुतः निर्मलस्य कुतः स्नानं वस्त्रं विश्वोदरस्य च अगोत्रस्य सवर्णस्य कुतस्तस्योपवीतम् निर्लेपस्य कुतो गन्धपुष्पं निर्वासनस्य च निर्विशेषस्य का